Silver Bullet is a 1985 horror film based off the Stephen King short novella Cycle of the Werewolf. While the film was panned critically upon its release, it has since gained a cult following. The film follows two siblings with a rocky relationship as they hunt down the werewolf that is causing a series of murders in their small town. The film was directed by Dan Attias and stars Haim and Gary Busey. Hey guys, and welcome to Garage Stephen-King-a-thon, where every day, for the month of October, we revisit a Stephen King adaptation. Today we're talking about Silver Bullet. And guys, I love me a good werewolf movie. American Werewolf in London, the original Wolfman, even the remake of the Wolfman with Benicio del Toro. I like werewolves, even when they show up in Harry Potter. I love it. I love werewolves. I think they're so interesting. But is this movie interesting? Well, I feel like if you didn't grow up with it, there's not really much to like about this. Let's just say, I love the wipeouts in this movie. Right off the bat, someone's head gets sliced off by a motherfucking werewolf. I like that shit. I like blood. And I like the fact that this has a more kid-friendly vibe, but it's still pretty gory, okay? I feel like if I watched this as a kid, I would so enjoy it because it's very easy to grasp. The character relationships are kind of interesting. It's kid-friendly in tone, despite it being very violent. And just because it seems like a kid-friendly movie, it doesn't mean you don't want to be violent. You do want to be violent, even if the movie's kid-friendly, because the stakes just feel that much higher. So yes, the head slicing, there's a scene where there's fog everywhere and people are getting wiped out. All those scenes I thought were pretty interesting. I like the character played by Gary Busey. I like the fact that he's this drunk schlub of a man who is going through a divorce, and the little kid played by Haim wants to hang out with his uncle, but the mother doesn't really like the fact he's doing that because the uncle is a bad influence. Kind of reminded me of the classic John Hughes movie Uncle Buck, where it kind of has a similar premise. So this movie is basically Uncle Buck, but with a werewolf. While I did like the wipeouts in this movie, I just thought the story was a little thin, and reason being because it was based off a short story. One example of how I thought it was very thin was in its narration. The narration just fills you in on a bunch of shit that the movie doesn't really tell you about. At the end of the movie, the kid says, "Oh wait, we gotta shoot it with a silver bullet." I know this because I follow a lot of horror magazines.
Marty had read all the legends about werewolves. And though they differed on several minor points, they all agreed on one. It takes silver to kill a werewolf.
And it's like, since when? Since when? I haven't seen you pick up one horror magazine in this whole fucking movie. And yeah, basically if you've seen An American Werewolf in London, there's absolutely no reason to watch this werewolf movie because it just does everything this movie is trying to do, but better, which I kind of hate comparing movies, but even like the transformation scene, it just borrows a lot of the same techniques from An American Werewolf in London. So why not just watch An American Werewolf in London is what I'm saying. And that's something that the studio was really forcing onto the filmmaker. Apparently, that because of the success of An American Werewolf in London, they wanted the werewolf design to kind of copy that of that movie. But when Stephen King first thought of this story, he pictured a more bear-like person. It was almost like a bear more than a werewolf. And there was a lot of conflicts in the design of the werewolf. And I think this is one of the times that I'll take King's side on, because instead of just jumping on the success of a previous werewolf movie that was pretty good, you gotta kind of create your own thing. And I feel like if they went with Stephen King's design, this movie would have had a more unique identity. But yeah, what really carries this movie is the relationship between Corey Haim and Gary Busey. I like the fact that Gary Busey built Corey Haim's wheelchair and he upgrades it throughout the film, and it's called the Silver Bullet. Wink, 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 wink. That was a little on the nose, not gonna lie. But yeah, that relationship was interesting. Some of the wipeouts were interesting, but I couldn't remember this movie the day after I watched it, to be honest. And it's one of those movies, if you grew up with it, I'm sure you have fond memories, but if you're a big schlub like me who's watching it at 23 for the first time, not much to it, unfortunately. So yeah, that's my thoughts on Silver Bullet. If you just want a good werewolf movie, just watch An American Werewolf in London. It does everything but better. But hey, if I had a kid, I would pop this in the DVD player for my kid. Not as much for me. I feel like this is more of a kid horror movie. Don't use me as a parental guide, by the way, okay? I would show some kids some fucked up shit. I would show a kid Antichrist with Willem Dafoe, okay? So don't use me as a way to raise your kids. I don't have kids. I can barely handle myself. Guys, tune in tomorrow. More Stephen King adaptation reviews coming your way.
Silver Bullet, the last glimmering hope.